Good morning, leaders. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Um, we're going to do a lecture here on chapter 8, and it's going to be, sort of the usual kind of thing we do here. I'm just going to go through my outline I have, and I'm just going to highlight points from chapter 8 that are going to be most important for exam number 3. Okay, so I'm going to skip over a lot of things. Your last exam is on chapters 7 through 9. It is more heavily weighted on chapters 7 and 9 than it is on 8, but there is information from chapter 8 on the exam that will be covered, and I'll speak directly to those things here, just out of respect for your time. So the amount of time we have left for the class, um, primarily you guys would spend on these projects that you have to finish. And whether, again, you do a paper or a presentation is entirely up to you. I give you that choice. I would ask, please email me and just let me know what your group is doing, so I know. And again, I set up those group discussion forums for you under the forums tab on the Sakai menu. I haven't seen anyone using them yet, but if you need that space to have conversations, I'm sure you guys are probably doing um, group chats or texts or things like that, but those forums are available. Okay. Exam number 3, as I said, I'll be throwing out your lowest exam score this semester. I'll just take the 2 out of 3 highest scores that you have. If your exam average is already very high and you decide you just don't want to take the third exam, you want to stick with the average you have, this semester I don't have a problem with that. Really, we've all got um, stuff piled up, and so if you've got a very high exam average already and you just want to maintain that and not take a third exam and risk lowering the average, you're welcome to do that. I leave that entirely up to you guys. I will just ask, if you choose not to take exam number 3, you email me and tell me that, and I'll repeat this in a Sakai announcement to everyone, just so I don't know if people are missing the exam who are, not planning to take it. Okay, so let's talk about chapter 8, which is interacting in teams and groups. I recommend that you get your textbook so you can follow along with me or on your device. So pause your computer right now if you don't have your book or your device. Pause the lecture and grab your textbook or bring it up on your phone or wherever you have it. Okay. But I'm not going to pause. I'm going to keep going. All right, so let's talk about chapter 8. So this really kind of works well with the Washington readings for our discussion forum this week too, because here what we're talking about is working with other people, right? How do we function in groups and teams, and how do we work and operate with other people? Oh, you know what? My wife's got the seat panel. There we go. My wife was using this. Not that I'm a very tall guy, as you know. I am taller than she is anyway. Okay, so anyway, um, let's talk here about 3 important things. So for understanding groups, your textbook describes a group as 3 or more people, quote, and this is on page 311 where we are. I got my book with me here. So it says a group is 3 or more people interacting and communicating interpersonally with each other over time in order to reach a goal. So it's 3 or more people who are working together over some period of time together to reach a goal, whatever that might be. That would be the purpose, right? And going back to our relational leadership model. And to speak to that point, there are 3 key dimensions to every team or group. Every team or group has 3 key dimensions. Those are purposes, structure, and time. And your textbook goes through these points on pages 311 and 312, right? So let's talk about that. Purposes. What does that mean? Well, groups and teams, every group exists for different reasons, right? A baseball team exists for a different reason than the history club. Um, a, uh, a community group that is trying to clean up a neighborhood or trying to raise food for a local food bank or something exists for a different reason. Oh, here I am touching my face. Right? Got an itch from the allergies. Um, A community group like that might exist for a very different reason than um, hmm, pause here. Another group. All right, so just groups exist for different reasons. We can follow that. And so form follows function under this situation. This means that the purpose of a group will dictate what the structures and processes the team follows are. What will be the structures and processes for that group or team? The purpose of the group will dictate that. That's what it means by form follows function. It's going to look like what the group needs it to look like in order to accomplish the goal. A group like, let's say, a student club or organization will have officers, right? We'll have a treasurer, a secretary, a president, a vice president, whereas a baseball team might have a captain, and that's it, right? So the form will look different. There wouldn't be a structured hierarchy like that on something like a sports team. Structures, going back to our key dimensions here. Number two, structure. Structure could be formal or informal. Again, it goes back to what's the purpose of the group. Um, what, how will the people set it up? Is it going to be autocratic? In other words, autocratic means essentially one person making all the calls, right? So there's one leader and everyone does what that leader says. Is it going to be set up that way? Or is it going to operate by the relational leadership model where everyone is involved in decisions? People are empowered, people are included. Is it going to look like that? And there's sort of consensus building, which this chapter talks about a little further on. Or is it going to be hierarchical? Are there going to be sort of levels of leadership starting at the top and working down, right? And people report in an upward structure in the group or team. Again, the purpose of the group and how involved its operations are largely are going to dictate what the structure of leadership in the group will look like. And then third, is time, right? The other key dimension is time. Is a group time limited or ongoing? For example, a search committee would be a time limited group, right? You put together a team or committee of people to hire a new dean for the business school or a principal for the high school, right? That is a group with a limited shelf lifespan, right? It's going to exist until the hire is completed and then the group's work is done, right? Whereas an ongoing group or team might be, again, the baseball team, right? Every year there are going to be different players on the team, but the Rutgers Camden baseball team is there every year, right? That's an ongoing group or team. So time dictates a lot of different things. It will dictate member terms, how long someone will be a member of a group. It will affect the rate of changeover in the group. Sometimes it can affect the motivation of the group, right? So how excited people are at any given time in their participation in the group. For example, a first year player on the baseball team might not be getting as much playing time, and maybe their motivation is low because they're a little discouraged at that point. But after a few years on the team and their skills improve and they get a little stronger and having a little more success out there, their motivation might start to amp up, right, as they become closer into their upper class years, and then they start maybe moving into even leadership roles. So people's motivation in a group with a longer time span can be at different places at different points in time, right? So this is why time is also an important dimension of understanding groups and teams. So when we throw the term group out there or team, just remember it's not again a one size fits all term. Okay. All right. Let's move on to talk about group development here, and I want to here look at the work of Tuckman. This is from 1965, and it's Tuckman's analysis of group development. And I'm just finding it in my book here. Oh, just a page away. Okay, starting on page 313. And this work from 1965 talks about the 4 stages of group development. Now, before I begin this, let me say this is very similar, but not exactly the same as Scott Peck's 1987 work we looked at on true authentic community. in the Chapter 7 lecture. So in the Chapter 7 lecture that I typed up for you guys, and that took quite a bit of time. Anyway, in that section on Scott Peck and the stages of reaching true authentic community, there are some similarities here, but there are some differences. So pay very close attention. You're going to need to know both of them, okay? But let's understand the differences between them. Okay, so Tuckman here, and this information is between page 313 and let's say 317. And there's actually a nice convenient table here on page 317, table 8.1, that breaks a lot of this stuff down for you. Okay, the 4 stages of group development, according to Tuckman, are forming, storming, norming, and performing. Okay, so they all rhyme, so you can commit them to memory, right? Maybe you'll even go and you'll crank out a major rap or hip hop tune that's going to just sort of put you at the top of the charts with these very valuable rhymes I'm giving you today. Right. Okay, so forming, storming, norming, and performing. So pretty basic stuff, right? Let's just talk about a band, right? I'm a musician. I've played music groups for 30 years, right? So forming. This is where, let's say I put an ad in the newspaper. I'm just going to try to give you guys a kind of example of what this looks like as a process, right? So let's say I want to put together a new group, right? And I put an ad in the newspaper. Say, hey, I'm a singer, and I need some people for a group. I need a drummer and a keyboardist and a guitar player and a bass player. If you're interested, please apply. We can rehearse in my basement. Okay. So I get a bunch of ads from a bunch of different people. And next thing you know, I have a keyboardist. I receive responses. I got a keyboardist, which is hard to find, by the way, and a bass player, equally hard to find, because everybody wants to be a drummer or a guitar player because they get all the attention. But the fact is, when you're trying to put a band together, there's a million guitarists and drummers, and you can't find bassists and keyboard players. Word. Okay, so let's say I get a response from every one of those people, right? So now I got a 5-piece group, right? We're all set. We got a bass player, keyboard player, drummer, guitar player, singer. We're set. It's all going to be good, right? So that's forming. So we get together in my basement. Let's say first week, everybody can make it over. It's a Thursday night or something. People show up, they load in, we set up. All right, let's play something. What do you want to play? I don't know. And everybody plays along. Okay, something everybody knows, a standard or something. Do a couple blues standards and easy stuff just to see what everybody's got. Now, at that point, everybody's like, oh yeah, great. Hey, sounds good, right? Everybody's happy. But now we're going to figure out after the initial, okay, we think everybody's cool. Okay, we think everybody's going to be fine. Everybody can play. See you next week. So we come back the following week. Now we start to get into storming. Okay, storming is, I want to do classic jam band that gets into jazzy improv stuff. And the guitar player likes metal. And the keyboardist likes prog rock. And the drummer likes funk. And the bass player likes funk, but he also is a big fan of, let's say, classic rock. So we just found out that we're all over the place, right, with what our actual musical interests are. So, well, what's the inclusive kind of thing to do? What are we going to do here? I'm going to take you through this whole situation. Okay, so that's the storming. We find out we don't all like the same kind of music. Okay, so we agree that, hey, I'll tell you what, we'll do a couple blues songs, we'll do a couple metal songs, we'll do a couple prog rock songs, we'll do a couple funk songs, and we'll do a couple classic rock songs. And then everyone will be happy, right? So we think we've got it. This is a little like organizing and chaos, right? So we could do that. That would actually kind of speak to Peck. We'd be organizing around the chaos. Okay? We would, let's say, okay, we're all going to do a couple songs that everybody likes. So we learn all these songs. We sound pretty good doing them. We go out to do a gig, and I don't know, let's say we're doing, just for an example, we're doing a short night. We got 10 songs, doing 90-minute set or something like that. We find out that I'm out there playing, and I'm only happy during 2 songs. And then during the other 8 tunes, I'm kind of rolling my eyes, doing the thing, because I'm not really doing the thing I want to do. I'm doing the thing the drummer wants to do, or I'm doing the thing the keyboard player wants to do. I'm not completely satisfied with what's happening. And neither is anyone else when they're playing the 8 songs that aren't the 2 they want to play. Everybody's just kind of going along, mailing it in, and no one's really enjoying it. Okay, so we're still storming, even though you might say, well, you guys have got a gig, you're performing. Well, yeah, but not at our optimal level, not at our best, right? And you can read how the textbook is defined in these different parts. I'm just trying to give you like a kind of life example. Look at what that looks like. So even though you might say you guys are playing out, look, you guys are playing out. You're not in the basement, you're performing. Yeah, but we're not performing at our max, right? The group isn't what it could be. It's just going through the motions, right? It's still storming because we've never really kind of settled the differences. So how do I get to norming in this particular situation? Well, no one's going to be happy unless they're doing what they want to do. And I've been down this road before. So what you do is you find out who wants to do what you want to do and who you can make accommodation with, right? And I find out that the bass player who likes some funk and who likes classic rock, I can come to more of an accommodation with him. And the drummer who likes funk can play the jazzy stuff and all that, and I can come into accommodation with him. But the keyboard player and the guitar player are going to have to go. I can't stand metal. And although I like prog rock, I'm a big Yes fan, right? I can't fit this in with what we're trying to do here. It's just what happens is we wind up sounding like a jukebox. We don't sound like a band that has a coherent point of view. We don't sound like we're all coming from the same place. Our band is like a jukebox where you don't know what you're getting next. There's no rhyme or reason to what we do. There's no message. There's no purpose. Okay. And the audience is hearing that. They're going like, what are these guys? Like, I don't get where they come from. And who's going to pay money to go see that? Nobody. We'll stay home and watch Netflix. Okay. So I got to get rid of a couple people and bring in a couple of other people that I can say, look, this is what the bassist and the drummer and I do. We've got a good rhythm section here. Okay. We've got good vocals. What we need are two people who can come in and play this kind of style we're trying to do. Then we find those people. And then we work in that direction as a group that has a common purpose. Okay. And we start to put those kinds of songs together that we want to be doing. And we hit norming. This is where we're doing what we should be doing. We figured out how we do it. We know how we rehearse together, how we learn songs together, right? What the expectations are, right? Practice is something you do on your own at home. Rehearsal is what we do when we all come together with the things we've learned at home, right? So nobody's wasting anybody's time, right? And we figure out how we get things done, and we're all on the same page. Okay, that's norming. And then performing to get to that next stage is now we're taking it out. Okay, now we know our stuff cold, right? It's tight. Everybody's getting along because it sounds good, and everybody is fulfilling everyone else's expectations. Okay, you're not showing up to rehearsal and you don't know 3 songs you were supposed to have learned, and people are having to show you the songs in rehearsal and wasting everybody's time, right? Everybody's prepared. Everybody's taking care of their stuff. Everybody's woodshedding it at home, showing up, knowing what they're supposed to know, and we can go out. And now we go out and we're good. We're good and we're performing and people are digging it and people are coming up and talk to us and we're going around talking to people and we're making new relationships with people through the music, and that's a good time, and that's performing. That's when everybody's having a good time and the goals are being reached, right? So you can go through these sort of false stages of performance. Again, this is what Peck called organizing chaos, right? This is not what we want to do. Sometimes, as I said in the lecture, I believe, sometimes you have to let people go to reach the goal. Okay. So, and then there's adjourning. Okay, adjourning, and that's a sort of optional 5th stage of group development that Tuckman talks about. Adjourning is when now it's time to say goodbye, right? So we had a band some years back that after 9 years, it was time to wrap that thing up for a while. Now, turns out we're just starting to bring it back after a 4-year hiatus. But we had this group, friends of mine and I, for about 9 years. We had this Allman Brother tribute band, and we played at a lot of really good rooms in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and we finally wrapped that up after 9 years because I just kind of wanted to do something different. And yeah, it was just time to do something new. And when you adjourn, you want to celebrate what the group accomplished. You want it to be a meaningful thing, right? So we had a kind of farewell show at Havana, which is a big nightclub in New Hope on the main street there. We had a big sort of final. It was in December. It was one of the guitar players' birthdays. We managed to book it on, and we had a big goodbye night. And the place was packed. We had 170 people there. It was great. Great night, great show, and birthday cake interruption to the set, and people getting up on stage singing with us too. Didn't even know how to sing. It was fun. But anyway, all the audience and people who had seen us for years, it was a great time. And that was the way to adjourn, right? It ended on a celebratory note, right? And accomplishing the group's work. The purpose had been met, and just sort of honoring the work that was done. That's what adjourning should look like. It shouldn't be like, if you have a committee that's done hard work for a year, hiring a new principal or a dean of business, when that thing's over, the committee members ought to go out to dinner, instead of just going their own ways and just celebrate the work that was done, right? I mean, that's what you do. All right. And then lastly, I want to get on to the last section of this lecture here. First, let me ask, were there any questions on part 2? Okay, well, email them to me. All right. So the last part is talking about dynamics in groups, right? So just flipping ahead. And again, make sure you know these 4 to 5 stages that you're reading here between pages 313 and 317 there from Tuckman. Okay, so moving over to page 320, talking about dynamics in groups. Okay, so there are different subtopics here that are talked about in the chapter, so I'm just going to go over them quickly. And these are, again, things to know and think about. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about group roles. The first part here is group roles. And groups depend on individuals in 2 kinds of roles. The first is group building roles, and the second is task roles. Okay, group building roles and task roles. So group building roles are people who are involved in focusing on the group as people. And here, now we're getting into the relational leadership model, right? Focusing on the group as people, including the relationships among members, attending to the process of the group, right? We talked about developing community as a process in the last lecture, right? This is where you're taking extra time out, right, as a group leader, to check on people, to just communicate with people, to build relationships, right? Excuse me. One of the reasons I had a band together for 9 years, I'd call people. Just call them on the weekend. Hey, how you doing? How's your family doing? Right? How'd your son make out at his baseball tournament? Right? Taking time to show interest in other people, that I'm not just interested in you for what you can provide for me, but I take a genuine interest in you and I want to have a relationship with you, right? And you will build a lot more what your textbook calls in another chapter, social capital, that way, right? That you're interested in people as people, not just people who can do things for you, right? So that sort of relationship building isn't hard to do. Does it take a little extra time? Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I mean, with everything that's been going on here, for example, with this situation we're in right now, and converting classes online and trying to grade all these midterm papers I had, and homeschooling with my kids, I'm still trying to take time to call out to people in my band. I'm in a 7-piece band now. I try to call them up. How you doing? How's it going? How's your family doing? Right? Just taking time out to show people that the relationship is important, right? And that's really a key for a leader. So especially in a group building role where you're responsible for that process, you're responsible to maintain group cohesion and continuity. These are things leaders have to do. Okay. With my courses right now, right? I'm trying to send as many pertinent announcements out to the students as possible to communicate with you people, so you know what's going on, so no one's confused and no one's wondering what's happened. People need stability and clear messages right now, right? So these are things that we should do, and I would say to you as students, if you are sort of struggling with your classes right now, if you are having uh, struggles, challenges, trouble focusing, any things like that, you should email your professors because we're not mind readers, right? So tell someone because we need clear messaging too. I mean, we're getting, trust me, as many announcements as you're getting from your professors, we're getting them from chancellors, we're getting them from deans, all kinds of university offices. I mean, many emails a day we're getting from Rutgers administration about changing situations, right? We just got a new one about a hiring freeze, and if your expense reports haven't been covered, you're not getting reimbursed, right? So a lot of things are going on right now. So anyway, um, take that opportunity to communicate. So anyway, group building roles are important, attending to the process, right? Whereas task roles are a focus on accomplishing the purposes of the group. So on the one hand, I'm going to pause just for a moment here. I'm being interrupted. Can I pause? I'm not pausing. Okay. Okay, my son has done his homework apparently. Could you please walk the dog then? Thank you. All right, there you go. Celebrate that by walking the dog. Um, so group roles are sort of the cohesion of the group, maintaining the focus on the group as people, right? Whereas the task roles are a focus on accomplishing the purposes of the group. People who are actually doing the worker bees, right? Doing the actual, you have people who are in charge of maintaining the group, and then you have people who are actually doing the work of the group, right? So those are the task roles. Task roles are focused on the content of the group discussion. Whatever the thing is we talk about that we do, it's the doing of it, right? That's what the task roles are. Now, so those are kind of the good and necessary and functional roles that would be in a group or team. Unfortunately, we get people at times who play dysfunctional roles on groups, in groups or on teams. Excuse me, got my prepositions backwards. In groups or on teams, right? So we have to look out for these sort of special dysfunctional role players who can really create challenges, right? And who are people who really need to learn to sort of get on board or get off. Quite frankly, these are people that have to be dealt with. And this is why the Washington chapters, again, are sort of interesting, and I really encourage you to read them. And they're actually quite entertaining. The chapters on troublemakers and on subordinates and superiors. Okay. So the first one is the special interest pleader that your textbook talks about. This is the person that has a hidden agenda. Okay, this is the person who's coming along, uh, acting like they're going along, but they've got their own agenda, they've got their own thing they're trying to either get out of the situation or accomplish with the situation, or they think they're going to turn a situation to their own personal advantage, right? Um, at the expense of others, right? And so we have to be very keep an eye out for these special interest pleaders. And if we have a person speaking in too many I's and not enough we's, and their sole focus seems to be themselves. For example, my wife, who works in a hospital, uh, and a number of months ago, they hired um, a new nurse practitioner, right? Which is what my wife does. And so they had a new nurse practitioner in the hospital team there, and she's young, and they're trying to work out schedules for summers and holidays, and the doctors practice that they work with. We're asking them to sort of plot out what are their holidays going to be for the rest of the year, and this young woman seemed to think that, I guess, by virtue of her age and perhaps her lifestyle, she was entitled to every summer holiday off. And it would just be fine if my wife and the other woman worked all those holiday weekends because she apparently had party plans. She was just entirely focused on herself and her own entertainment. And she just went ahead and checked off every summer holiday that she was going to be off every one of those weekends in the summer. And my wife and the other woman sort of, excuse me, like, hello, and you're the new person, right? So, I mean, she handled it very tactfully, but I mean, these are people we got to look out for, right? It's not that somebody would get Memorial Day off, somebody would get the 4th off, and somebody would get Labor Day off. This person was going to get all 3 off. Right? And you've probably seen this at your job, right? Okay. But then there's a blocker. A blocker is a person who's just sabotaging things, a person who is just getting in the way. Um, they don't want to be on board with the team. They're there, but they don't want to be. But I guess for some reason they have to be, or they're there to say they're there, but they're not helping. Rather, they're hindering or impeding the group's progress toward its goals. They drag their feet. They work at half speed. They don't implement things they're asked to implement or do things they're asked to do. Um, in meetings when there are productive conversations going on, perhaps, and the group is moving in a particular direction, they will attempt to sort of prevent the group from moving toward a direction they don't want it to go in. And this is again, this is not what your textbook calls consensus later in this chapter, right? So you have to look out for the blocker. All right, and I think those are. And then you have the non-participant. The non-participant um, is a person who will just sit in a meeting on their phone texting the whole time, disengaged. I have students, right? I mean, who are non-participants. They sort of sit in the room and will demonstrably disengage themselves from the class. It's not just that they're disengaged; that they actually want you to know they're disengaged, right? Their displeasure at having to be in class. Um, so in a classroom, well, the students paying for the class, if that's what they want to get out of it, ultimately that's what they will get out of it. But if you're at a job, you're part of a service commitment. You're part of a sports team, right? A club where people are looking to you to be part of, right? To grab an oar and start rowing. And instead of grabbing an oar and rowing, you're sitting there eating a egg salad sandwich. Uh, you're not helping anybody, right? So what do we do with non-participants? Well, the easy thing to do is just fire them, right? Get rid of them, kick them out of the club, kick them off the team, ask them to leave, fire them, right? That's the easy thing to do with a non-participant. Just write them off. Who's that help though? Who does it help? Does it help the person? Well, maybe it comes as a relief to them. Maybe they say good. Does it help the group? Well, on surface, it might. You could say, well, okay, we don't have to deal with that person and their bad energy. But let's think about it this way: that person might be pretty smart. That person might be pretty handy, might be pretty strong, might be pretty talented, right? Well, I mean, whatever the situation might call for, that person might have what's needed, right? But how do we know when that person's disengaged, right? That person could be a great help. In other words, that person could be turned around, perhaps, right? And it would be to everybody's benefit to do that. So how do we do that? In class, we would be having a lengthy discussion about this because I like to ask about this. What happens if a couple of team members or group members come over to that person after a meeting or after a work situation and say, "Hey, listen, is everything cool? Like, want to go get a sliced pizza? You don't even have to ask them if things cool first. Just say, hey, want to go grab a soda? Want to grab a coffee, a cup of sliced pizza, and just hang out." And maybe start engaging them. Maybe they just don't feel like part of. Maybe they don't feel part of it. Maybe they feel like there's a clique that they're not part of, and they just are disengaged for that reason because of prior experiences. They just feel like they're not going to fit in, right? Or they don't, and they're just misperceiving the whole situation. Um, maybe they're shy. Um, maybe they're just a person who likes to sit back and just sort of take stuff in, right? But the wise thing to do is to try to grab that person and get a little alone time with them and find out, hey, what's happening, and try to do a little relationship building and see if maybe you get some answers about why maybe you think that they're being aloof or something like that, right? So sometimes we can take those non-participants and turn them into very valuable people for the organization, and this, of course, empowers them, includes them, right, and has all those good effects that the relational leadership model can have, right? So let's pay attention to that. Okay. Group norms. So your textbook talks about group norms, also group climate, right? It says the group climate is like the group's personality, right? So we're on page 325 now. Um, Chemistry is a word we hear a lot when a group has good chemistry, right? So the norms are what I like to say about group norms is the norms are the how we roll um, dimension of a group, right? This is how we roll. This is how we do things, right? This is the culture of this group, right? Um, you know, is the culture of the group that meetings start 10 minutes late? Maybe that is. Is the meeting of the culture of the group we start on time? Maybe it is. So it could look normal or abnormal to you because every situation has different participants and different leaders, right? But group norms are developed by the process that the group uses, right? This is on page 326, right? Group norms are developed by the processes that the team or group uses. Okay, so the way that you attend to process with the group, including relational leadership, communication, right? The process you use is going to dictate what the culture is going to be. Is it going to be a culture of caring, a culture of not caring? Is it going to be a culture of functionality or dysfunctionality? Is it going to be, are the norms, when I say culture, I mean the norms of the group, are the norms going to be everybody gets their stuff done, or we just let stuff drag on and on and on month by month, right? So those norms are established by your process, right? And this is why attention to process is always important. Okay, so that's group norms. Creative conflict. Creative conflict is important. Okay, if I were to say to you, conflict, who likes conflict? Most people are going to say, no, we try to avoid conflict, right? Nobody likes conflict. But conflict quite often is an opportunity to work through something and get to the other side. Again, let's go back to Scott Peck uh, in chapter 7 and true authentic community, right? I'm going to read to you from page 327 up near the top of the page. It says, it's not uncommon for people to want to avoid conflict. So they often ignore it or pretend it does not exist. Sounds familiar, right? Some say it is like having an elephant in the room. Everyone is aware of the tension that a huge conflict creates, like an elephant standing in the corner, but no one talks about it. Let's just pretend it's not there. Let's pretend this problem isn't here. This is what Scott Peck calls organizing chaos. We're going to organize around the chaos. We're going to pretend that 600-pound gorilla is not in the corner, and we're just going to go about our business like everything's fine and normal here, right? So this is why creative conflict can be valuable. True communities resolve conflicts rather than avoid them. When conflict is confronted, it's usually best to employ negotiation and mediation strategies instead of power strategies. It has to be about give and take. It has to be about creating win-wins, okay? Just like in business, and we talked about this in class, if you want people to do business with you again, the object of the transaction should not be for you to just fleece the other person, get away with all the profit, leave them holding the bag, you laugh, they cry, right? That's not a good way to go about business, right? That's piratical. In other words, being like a pirate, right? You want to create win-win outcomes so that everyone walks away from the transaction with a good feeling, a good taste in their mouth, and people want to come together and do business again. Okay. It can be the same way with creative conflict. Create conflict if approached creatively and thoughtfully and with a mediation strategy, right? Thinking about how we're going to approach this and look to build some kind of consensus. You can wind up with win-wins that get the group going forward. This is what we would call the emptying, right? We have the organization or emptiness. Moves us into the emptiness, right? Okay. So conflicts are useful, and I'm at the bottom of page 328 here. Well, let's start at the top. 328 it tells us at the top, leadership. The relational leadership model encourages processes to handle conflict that will promote inclusivity and empowerment. Get people around the table and hear people, right? And at the bottom, this is important. In the bottom paragraph, it says the more homogeneous a group is, the more essential it is to think through an issue from multiple perspectives, right? So let's say you guys have a student group, it's the biology club, and everybody in the group is juniors and seniors, and you're taking a vote on some major issue. And maybe you reach a unanimous decision. But did your decision consider what its impacts might be for freshmen and sophomores next year, right? So if you only have the perspective of juniors and seniors in the vote, right, on a situation, who is taken into account underclassmen and their needs or the situation that they might be in next year? You don't have a multiplicity of perspectives, right? So even if you realize it count, let me say, it's important to know who's in the room and take account of who's in the room. Okay, we're all juniors and seniors. Who's not in the room, right? And think about, okay, well, how might it impact them, right? How might it impact international students, right? In other words, considering multiple perspectives, even if you don't have them present, even if they're not part of it, right? Think about how it might impact them, or maybe take time to ask some folks how it might impact them. Right? This is important. Okay. So in this way, at least decisions are informed by the broadest possible thinking, if not input. Right. Even if no person is physically present who holds a divergent view. This is what your textbook is saying at the bottom of page 328. And that's true. Even if those people aren't there to represent themselves and give input, think about who's not there and what might they think. Okay. And that's always going to add value to what you're doing. Okay. Moving along to talk about group decision making real quick. The relational leadership model, page 331, would promote consensus models wherever possible when trying to reach consensus when the group is making decisions. Okay. Consensus does not mean that every single decision is made by the entire group, nor does it mean that a majority vote equals reaching consensus. Okay, just because if you have 28 people in a room voting and 15 people vote yes and 13 people vote no, that's not a consensus. That's a majority, right? That means you had two more people agree than disagreed. But you still have almost half of the people who don't agree. Okay, so that's not consensus building. That's just simply obtaining a majority. I mean, look at Congress. How much do they actually agree about? Stuff gets voted on. It seems like one half can't stand the other half, both ways, right? So that's not consensus. People feel completely different about things. So consensus does not mean that everyone in the team thinks the best possible decision has been reached. It does mean that no one is professionally violated by the decision and that all team members will support its implementation. So, for example, I think I've mentioned to you guys in class before that I serve on a school board, right? So, we have a saying, the board speaks with one voice. Now, inside the room, when the 12 of us are, sometimes debating policies or issues related to all kinds of things related to the school's operation, we don't all agree on things. We can hold strongly opposed views, but then we have a vote, and whichever side more people support, that's the side that quote unquote wins, right? That, in other words, that's the decision that's arrived at is probably the better way to couch that, right? It's not about somebody winning, but it's about this is a decision the group arrived at. But once we leave that room, everybody felt the same. In other words, the board speaks with one voice. Nobody speaks against a decision. We all represent the board, and that's it. We all hold the same view. That's consensus. Okay, that's consensus. Nobody speaks out of turn once we walk out of that room. Okay. This is an important point, real quick. Not all decisions warrant the attention of the entire group. Okay, and I'm on page 332, about halfway down here, right? So it talks about some guidelines for reaching consensus there, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And then it goes on to say, not all decisions warrant the attention of the entire group. It would be absurd to waste group members' time or resources by meeting on everything. It's useful to think of two dimensions of decisions, the need for quality in the decision and the need for acceptance of the decision. So you can think about those things when you read there, but not every decision is so critical that you need every single person there to make it. Some decisions are very easy to make and don't require getting 12 people's schedules rearranged to sit down in a room just to say, well, we got everyone here and we were inclusive. If it's something, what's important. When people should be there, and there should not be an effect where it seems like decisions were made privately or in secret and people were excluded if they're silly decisions, right? We need to reorder staples, paper clips, and printer paper. That does not call for a meeting of 12 people to do that, right? There's a new sexual harassment policy that calls for 12 people to be there, right? We can weigh these things in scales of importance, right? So sometimes it would be absolutely absurd to waste everyone's time by calling them in for a decision, is the point that's being made here, right? And I've given you some pretty big extremes there. So now we could all agree we needed paper clips, we needed staples. That's need for the acceptance of the decision. Yeah, everybody, okay, yeah, we need office supplies. Big deal. We'll order them. I have no trouble getting everybody's acceptance on that. Whereas sexual harassment policy, that's where we need quality in the decision. That's where we need everybody's minds, we need everybody's point of view so we can arrive at the best possible decision as a group, right? That's a decision that calls for quality in the decision. Okay. And teams and groups, we're going to skip over that part. And the last thing is going to get you to SMART. Okay, we're on page 337 toward the bottom, talking about the SMART rubric, providing a framework for teams to use as they establish their goals. I encourage you to create a SMART goal for yourself. Okay, so SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym. Again, we're on bottom of page 337. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So that when individuals or groups create goals, they should be able to fit this SMART rubric, okay, or applied to this SMART rubric. So specific, the goal has to be clear. It has to be a very clearly stated goal, right? There's no vagary or opaqueness to it, right? Second, it should be measurable. It's quantifiable. We can tell if it's been achieved or not, okay? Attainable. The goal has to be realistic and possible to achieve. Setting goals that aren't attainable would be, in other words, I could say, I got a goal. I want to get a PhD in chemistry by next year. Well, for a guy who has trouble with fractions, I don't think that's attainable, right? I mean, well, we all know 4/3 of all people have trouble with fractions, but that's beside the point. The fact is, it's not attainable for me to get a PhD in chemistry next year, right? That's a silly goal. Okay. A goal should be relevant, right? The goal is in alignment with the direction of the organization and its strategy, or the goal is in alignment with where you're going in life. At my age right now and where I am in my career, it would be an absurd, fruitless waste of time for me to get a PhD in chemistry. In what way would it benefit me at this point? It would not. It would not be worth the time I had to put into it. It would be irrelevant. Okay? And it has to be time bound. Okay? There's a set time frame by which the goal will be achieved. In other words, I'm going to say, we're going to do this and we're going to accomplish this by April. Or we're going to, well, it is April now, right? We're going to accomplish this by June. Give yourself a goal and set a reasonable deadline for yourself so that it is time bound. I have to get this done between now and July. Okay. Set goal, and this is something you can do for yourself with anything, saving money, exercise, completing degrees, a school project or paper you have to do, right? If you use this SMART rubric, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, you can apply this to all kinds of areas of your life. And besides groups and organizations using them, they're very good for students personally. When we were had the Leadership Institute in operation, Brian and I, when students came in every semester, we had them fill out another SMART goal for themselves. And when they would come in to meet with us, we would hold them. We would ask them, okay, how are we doing with that SMART goal of yours? You said that you wanted to save $600 toward a car by the end of the semester. How are we doing with that? And have somebody help you stay accountable. Very important. Okay, so That's really everything we're going to have for chapter 8 that you have to think about for the exam. Um, I just wanted to bring out two extra points that are really important, I think, from this chapter. And one is talking about dialogue, um, the difference of dialogue versus sort of argument, right? And it says dialogue is built into the processes of reflection, which involves thinking together. Perhaps the best lesson for dialogue is don't just do something, stand there. Dialogue encourages you to clarify your positions, not prove them. So, have you ever been in a situation where you're talking with someone and you don't agree on everything, right? Um, well, having a dialogue is different than having an argument. When you're having an argument, you're trying to prove your point and win, right? When you're having a dialogue, you're really just trying to clarify your points, not prove them, right? It's a different way of communicating to people that's less abrasive, less aggressive, right? That you're just trying to clarify your point of view. And if you always try to, people are going to be much more open to what you have to say if they have an opposing point of view. If you are trying to clarify rather than prove the rightness of your point of view. Okay, so just remember that that's what dialogue is. It means essentially through, dia meaning through, log from the logos, knowledge. So you're kind of going through the knowledge is kind of what that means, right? Okay, and then lastly, there's a very good point on the bottom of page 342 that I just wanted to point out to you about teams and having the difference in having people who can fill different roles. And this is just a team building thing for you to think about, right? About having people who can fit specific roles that help the team versus having a bunch of well-rounded people, right? Because we're all taught that it's important for us to be well-rounded. Well, maybe we're not all taught that, but it's a commonly held idea that people should try to be well-rounded, and we should try to find well-rounded individuals, right? Okay, this here, and I really think this is very true. It is far better to have well-rounded teams by maximizing everyone's strengths than to attempt to be well-rounded individuals. That could result in mediocrity. Trying to be good at everything is humanly impossible, right? It's very true. We don't need everybody to be good at everything. We just need the right people on the bus who are good at the right things, okay, and who can complement each other. Having rather than having a bunch of sort of cookie cutter people that is obvious that who are all well rounded in the same ways, and we wind up with mediocrity, right? There's no personality. There are no differences. There's just nothing special there, right? If everyone is the same. So remember that, right? Better to find individuals with unique talents, getting the right people on the bus, rather than getting a bunch of sort of people who just really just look the same as the next person, right? It's not going to help a team. So think about having well-rounded teams, not well-rounded people. Okay, so that's all I got on chapter 8 today, guys. I look forward to reading what you have to say about George Washington and troublemakers and other people. I hope you have a good rest of the week. Enjoy the sunshine. Love you guys. There's one more lecture for chapter 9, and then we'll figure out how we're going to do the review session for this exam. Again, if you think you're not going to take the exam, please just send me an email. Let me know, so I'm not looking for exams coming in that aren't going to come. Okay. All right. Have a good weekend. Stay strong. Be safe. Be healthy. Be smart. Be leaders.